We are rolling.
What's up, y'all? 2 days ago, I raced Wilderness 101, which is, I think it's one of my favorite races. We'll get into that. I wanted to start this video off by explaining my thought process going into this race. I think that'll give greater context to like what ended up happening. My A race of the year is this weekend, August 2nd, Matahe. Matahe is not the easiest race for me to go to. It's the logistics of going to North Dakota, and also it's a point to point, so I need to also have a crew to help me with it. It might seem weird that I signed up for a very, very hard 100-mile race the literal week before my A race, and that is kind of weird, but what I've found, if I race like a back-to-back race, I usually do really well at the second one.
I agree with that. I've noticed that too.
Yeah, my training isn't that good. I'm kind of making these decisions off of a lot of feel. Currently, my job at the shop is fairly demanding. I don't have the most time to train. This plan was birthed last year. So last year, we did the Shenandoah 100. I totally bonked at that one, and it was really hard, even though I still did okay. The weekend after was Hoosier Downcountry, our mountain bike race. And funny enough, I had the best race of my career at that race. If you look at like the data from that day, I definitely had my best result ever. Going into Matahe, I knew I wanted to go to Wilderness 101, but the real goal was to prep for Matahe. Does that make sense, Chase?
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way, it's similar to what I did with Luton. It's like, I view it as prepping your bike setup, your gear, your nutrition.
Yeah.
And just making sure like you are good to go for your next event.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird race recap because first off, I didn't actually end up finishing the race. Not because I couldn't, but because I chose not to. I wanted to go test my race rig, make sure everything fit me right, make sure I had some experience going into this race, especially since we haven't been able to go mountain biking very much. And that was one of the things that whenever I was in Pennsylvania a few days ago, whenever I was actually mountain biking, the first trail we hit, I was bad. I got used to it and got better on the second and third trail, but I'm super happy that I went out there and did this just to get myself back into what I want to be for Matahe. The race is awesome. Wilderness 101, I think it's one of the oldest mountain bike races in the US, one of the like...
It's like one of the OG long distance
races, yeah. Last year, I was sick going into this race, ended up doing a lot better than I thought I was going to. This year, I wasn't sick, and I thought I had a shot at possibly contesting the podium, which I did have a shot at, but I definitely, as the race progressed, it kind of escaped me. This race starts out with a fairly significant climb. I always tell everybody that at this race, you want to do whatever you can to make this group. So this is the climb that I wanted to highlight here. This is the most important climb of the day, namely because after this climb, you're basically on gravel roads for 20 miles. If you make it to the top of this climb in the A group, you are going to get a free tow for at least 15 miles and have a significant advantage over anybody who doesn't. After this climb, we were pretty much riding at 21 to 20 miles an hour, and a hugely important part of the day to do that. Even if you're like overcooking it, it's probably worth it to go too hard on. In this climb, it looks like I averaged 300 watts for like 20 something minutes, and I was actually thinking that we were slower than last year, and I was right. If you go to my results, we were slightly faster last year. It was about the same toughness to do it, but technically easier to do it this year than last year. We had a group of 11 make it to the top together in the A group. There was a lot of guys you'd expect to be in that, and then there was a few guys that just were doing what I was doing, which is taking advantage of the free tow from guys like Patrick Collins and Jimmy, who ended up winning the race. The race kind of breaks apart on the second major climb, which is a double track. And on this climb, I actually was kind of faced with a decision. The group basically split in half again. And there was like 5 people in front and 5 people behind. And so there was like 2 main groups and I was right in the middle. This is funny enough where the race actually starts. It's about 20 miles into the event, and this climb is a double track and it's pretty grassy and overgrown. I was basically caught between having to go really hard to catch on to the new A group or dropping back and riding with the new B group. And I rode the whole climb like 10 foot off of Brian Schwarm's wheel. Nobody in sight behind, but I was like not quite quick enough to keep up with the A group's pace. I was roughly a minute back by the top. I basically needed 10 watts. Could have done it, but we were so early into the race that I ultimately decided that it was time for me to bail out of the A group.
Yeah, I feel like you had to decide, is it worth the 10 watts?
That's what I mean. I was thinking about it the whole time because it was just hard enough that I was putting out a lot of effort to make it to the top with them. And ultimately there's another major climb right after this on the gravel. I knew that I was going to be dropped again. And that's why I made the decision to back off. B group was still pretty fast. There's guys like Thad and Stuart Gross. There's a guy named Zach. Both Thad and Zach ended up on the podium at this event. It wasn't, race was not over at this point, but I dropped back and started riding with those guys. We rode for a bit. The group wasn't doing very well in terms of riding together, which is fine in a mountain bike race, especially 25 miles into a 100-mile mountain bike race. I'm not expecting great pack dynamic at all, but like Thad went up the road a little bit. Me and Stuart were like a little bit back, and then there was like another guy behind us. It was not cohesive at all. We hit the first single track. This single track is pretty chill, other than that there's a section after you cross 3 bridges where it gets really rocky. I went into that last out of this group and immediately was dropped. And that's what I was kind of saying, was that my mountain biking was a little rusty and I was not as comfortable as I would have wanted to be. But I kept going hard. This kid's name was Matthew, and I ended up riding a lot with him, but he crashed on this bridge section. It had rained the day before, like pretty heavily. Wilderness 101 is like primarily a gravel race, but there's a lot of like double track. The rocks are not that slippery, but still the wooden bridges are, and unfortunately he crashed there. And then I was in like 10th place at that point. Yeah, there's a group of 11 of us, and I moved up to 10th after his crash. Kept going, and I was still feeling pretty strong back out on the gravel. I rode to the next aid station, and at the top of this climb, it's a big climb, but at the top of the climb there's an aid station, and then you go down a super rocky descent. I ended up crashing on it. The crash wasn't bad at all. I did flip over the bars. I don't know why, but like, yeah, I crashed and I was like, what happened? Luckily nothing was wrong. So my bike was totally fine. I've now found that I'm a little bruised on my lower back, but at the time, like nothing was wrong. And so I got back on and kept going, still feeling okay. Made it to the second single track section, and this one's a little bit longer. Just by myself, rode into the aid that's at like mile 50. Last year, I got dropped at this aid because of my hydration pack. I tried to get my hydration pack filled and ended up dropping the whole bag on the floor, and it took me a little bit of time to put it back together. This year, I had bottles and it was much faster to fill up, but the 60-mile racers caught me at this point, and that was a little surprising. Last year, the 60-mile racers didn't catch me until the bottom of the next single track, and it kind of messed with my head a little bit. I was like, oh man, am I going slow? I've now confirmed that I was not going slow. All of my climb times were within less than a minute of the times from last year. So I was effectively going about the same pace. Some of them were faster, like a couple of the climbs I was even faster on. So the 60-mile guys were just going really fast. Funny enough, I'm climbing the climb after the aid, and I think his name's Mark. He's a well-known like endurance mountain bike racer. He was doing the 60-mile race and he was winning the race, and all of of a sudden he just turns around and goes back down the hill, and I look at him and I'm like, what are you doing? And I was just like, what is going on? I thought maybe he like forgot something at the aid or something, but I had no explanation. I just kept going. After that aid is the hardest single track of the day. It is a couple mile stretch of just boulders on the ground, and it's really slow. It's not fun to ride. And this is where I was starting to debate continuing to race. I wasn't feeling awful, but I wasn't feeling great. I had a little bit of a stomach ache. I think that was because of not having some great food the night before. I had like Wendy's. That was like one of the only things I could find, and that's not on anybody but me, but it was not the right call. I did the descent pretty chill and slow, and at the bottom I got out on the gravel and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna ride in and finish the ride. I ended up helping out. Shout out to Tyler, who he just left us a really nice Google review. He had his transmission derailleur, like it didn't fall off, but it came loose, and so I helped him fix his bike, and I think he ended up finishing. And I keep rolling, and I run into Patrick Collins, who's pulled over on the side of the road, and he has a flat tire, and I had already stopped racing at this point, so I pulled over. I was like, hey man, like I can help. Helped him fix his bike, which took a while, but I had like one of those like nicer inner tubes. It was like a Pirelli one or something.
It's like the Pirelli version of a Tubolito.
Yeah, exactly. And then Patrick was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna pull out. I was like, you know what, I'll ride back with you. I wasn't racing anymore. I was happy to just kind of hang out. I'd never really gotten to hang out with Patrick before. He dominates the race series, and I was like, you know what, that sounds fun. Me and him and one other guy just kind of went off the course. It ended up being about a 40-mile ride back to the start. I was not in any sort of dire situation. Doing that 40-mile ride was no problem. The funniest thing ever happened though, we kind of formed this like group hedo of people who had pulled out. Turns out Mark, who I was talking about earlier, had just decided to stop also, and that's why he turned around, which I thought was hilarious because he was literally winning the race. And we ended up riding to aid station 4 with the 4 of us. Him and his fiance were with us. We get to aid station 4. Matthew, who crashed earlier, was like, yeah, I'm done. There's another kid, one of the fast kids. He was the kid pushing the pace at the start of the event. He had also had an issue and was pulling out, and we were all like, let's all go. And so we had like this group of people riding back together. I didn't mention this earlier, but the coin cell battery in my shifter was going bad, so whenever you would try to shift, it would like have a huge delay, and I had to click the button a bunch before it would kind of like wake up. The dropper, while we were climbing the final big climb to kind of go back to the start, I ended up just switching the batteries out. But that was another reason why I wanted to pull out, is because it's not an event that you want to lose your dropper on. I would have been fine to probably finish, but like I didn't want to like keep racing without a dropper.
Yeah, I'm intimidated to do Wilderness 101 specifically because of the mountain bike sections. Like any photo I see, the trail is just boulders.
It is. They're not very long sections, but it really is. I personally cannot think of a more rowdy trail system. I haven't personally ridden something more rowdy than Rothrock, and I think it's like real deal, super technical. We were all talking about it, and it's like the trails are fun, but they're almost not fun because the trail demands complete focus. If you are not focused, you will have an issue. And so you kind of have to tunnel vision on the ground below you to navigate these trails. And if you're not feeling it, like it gets old quick riding the rocks because it's just slow and you kind of grind through it. But yeah, we ended up riding in. I still rode like 85 miles and it was a pretty fun day. I had more fun riding in and hanging out with everybody than I would have racing to the end. Donnie is another guy who's really quick at these events, and a lot of us were hanging out. We basically went on the course and then cut it short and descended the first climb. And as we're kind of all hanging out there, through the corner of my eye, I see Donnie riding in, but he's on this like bright pink bike, and he doesn't have a bright pink bike. He has a green Santa Cruz Blur. And I was like, what is going on? And the first thing, whenever I saw that he was back at his car, I went over to him. I'm like, what the f was going on? Turns out he like blew up his rear tire and was riding on his tire insert. And he told me that his tire insert basically disintegrated. Somehow he connected with a family that was just out there camping or hiking or playing in the river or something. And they loaned him their son's bike, which was a like 90s Trek multi-track that was like a size small. And Donnie rode the last 10 miles of this race on this 1990 steel like entry-level mountain bike, which is so funny. I think that's the funniest.
They just like brought his bike back to the
There
shop.
was, I wish I got a clip of it, but I didn't have the camera on me at the time. This dude and his family like literally carried his bike back. Or like maybe they drove it I don't even know, but like yeah, they walk in with his bike like, and I was like, what is going on? It was thunderstorming and raining a lot too. It wasn't like the easiest day out there. There was a lot of people that DNF'd this event, which I was one of them, so. Wilderness 101. I think next year I'll have a little bit more of a serious attempt at it. I don't know if we're gonna end up doing Matahe again. It depends on.
We'll see how next week goes.
Yeah, like if there's a reason to Matahe again, maybe I'll do this again, but I will reiterate, this was a tune-up for me to kind of just get ready for the next race. That Matahe video I'm really excited about. The race is a point-to-point, so Chase will be there. We're kind of making a filming plan where I'm hoping she can film the progression at every aid station.
There's 3 aid stations plus a handful of checkpoints, and my rough math, I think I'll see Jesse at least 14 times.
Yeah, so look forward to that. That'll be on the channel very soon. Definitely big shout out to Wilderness 101. I know this is a weird race recap, but it's a great event and I highly recommend it. Don't be that intimidated. Most of the race is gravel, but the trails are serious, so be ready for them. This is my Matahe race setup. I am going to be running the Peyotes, which is still my favorite tire ever. No flats for me. This is holding up really well. Like, it's not torn up at all. This is still the original set of peyotes that I purchased for Ozark Doom, and I've been riding them and they're still like really looking solid. I've raced them a lot. I was actually thinking like, oh, I should get a new set of tires from Matahe, but like honestly I don't need them at all. Like,
These still look very new.
they look very new to me. The bike was awesome and I'm gonna just keep rolling with this. Let us know if y'all want anything you see in the video or if you want us to build a bike. Wilderness 101 race recap. Thanks for checking it out.
Woo, bye.
Bye.